This episode of the Linux Action Show is brought to you by DigitalOcean and by Ting. Go to last.ting.com and save $25 off your first device or your first month of service. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 341. My name is Chris.
My name is Matt.
Good morning to you, Matt.
Good morning.
Are you ready for me to tell folks about the big show today?
Oh, heck yes.
All right, well, it is a big show. Coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, Ubuntu just celebrated their 10-year anniversary a couple of weeks ago, so we thought a great excuse to have Mark Shuttleworth on the show, and I'll ask him everything from if he's still motivated to work on Ubuntu and why, to why systemd and Mir. Some questions I think the community's had for quite a while, and we get direct answers from Mark. That'll be in the second half of the show. It was a great interview, about 30 minutes long.
Wow.
Also, some interesting news developments this week. One of the largest Linux projects in the world, I think you all know probably which one I'm hinting about, is actually going to get forked. The funding has now been launched, and the wheels are in motion. We'll talk about that. Plus, there's some other big stories, a Jala tablet update, or a Yala tablet update. And then in the feedback segment, the Free Software Foundation has put out their holiday shopping list. We'll give it a quick look and tell you which ones we like the most off the list. But first, Matt.
Yep.
It's our picks.
Good times.
And you know, I have been slowly documenting over the years, and it started early on when you made some observations that some of these Linux picks could contribute to Skynet. And since then, Matt, since you have made that observation, I have been on a mission to find all of the picks which I believe will plug into the global Skynet network and when the robots take over.
That explains
powered by
like
Linux.
the mind map of toilet paper in the bathroom.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
of
like,
course. Right.
All the connections, you know.
So here we go, Matt. Get ready. This is a crucial part of the recipe. These Linux-based AUVs.
Oh, boy.
Mapping the Arctic Sea ice thickness. Well, they run Linux. And not so much in the control. I'm going to show you a little bit about this. It was sent in by a few folks in the IRC and in the subreddit and one on Twitter. People really grabbed this one, including I have some thanks in the show notes for the ones that jumped out. Several different submissions to the subreddit. I think people were really fired up about this. So it's called Seabed, and it's an AUV. Right? It's an AUV, not like a UAV, not a drone. It's an autonomous underwater vehicle, and it was created to get high-resolution 3D maps of coral reefs and, of course, the ice. And here's a picture of a map, but even better, Dan Rather reports was on the scene, and we get a little description of how it works.
So AUVs, autonomous underwater vehicles, like Seabed, give scientists a way to dive deep on the cheap, without the limitations of a tether or the expense of a manned vehicle.
So Seabed was built by my students and myself as part of an experiment to understand aspects of imaging underwater. What we wanted is a platform that was smaller and also one that we could use to concentrate on coastal sites, that it would be able to go to about 2,000 meters. And also it would have really, really fancy cameras and imaging systems and navigation systems. We had a very limited budget, and we had some very, very good students. And between all that, we did it extremely inexpensively, and it came out quite well.
Now, they had also a former, I believe it was a Navy service member who joined them with the team to help build it. And if we watch this clip really closely, we'll see the Linux in action. If you're sharp-eyed,
Gotta watch for it.
You won't miss that Ubuntu Brown.
The vehicle is crisscrossing miles of the same reefs as it traveled 4 years earlier, taking literally thousands of images. Photos that Roy won't see until after the crew gets Seabed back aboard the ship.
See it there?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
You can see it's definitely an older, I touched the screen. GNOME-based version, like the old GNOME 2 version of Ubuntu. And then up there, you can see that I think might be a Windows box in the top window, but that's definitely right there. Look, you can see the Ubuntu Brown title bar.
Yeah, it almost feels like a, I don't know, 10-something maybe.
Yeah.
Meters above the seafloor, so 30 meters down, and it started its transect.
So he gets all of the live stats from the AUV on his Ubuntu.
That is awesome.
Yeah, and it's
nice.
Not only do they use it, so in this clip I'm playing here, they're looking at the reefs, but now they're using it to get an idea of how thick the Arctic ice is and where it's a difference than they thought, because now the thing can go underneath the ice and take pictures up and pictures down, and it can generate a 3D image of what the ice map is, and they can use it to get, they show, and in this Linux Gizmos article. They have a great write-up about it, which I have linked in the show notes if you're interested. But you can see here they get a multi-layered 3D map of the ice.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really cool. So it's based on the same drone we covered earlier. I don't know if you guys remember, but there was the search for the MH17 flight, and a Linux-powered drone was doing that. It's similar to that device. It's slightly been modified. The cameras have been greatly upgraded. And Seabed runs on Ubuntu Linux on a 1.2 gigahertz Intel Pentium. Complete source code is provided to the users, making sensor additions or vehicle maintenance much simpler if you were to build your own. And they've used a lot of commercial parts, like they have a carbon fiber prop.
Oh, wow.
And the carbon fiber prop is only a couple $100 because they're using something that's mass-produced for the RC wireless market. And so you're able to get a pretty significantly powerful system. The most expensive part is the optics, but that's where you would just kind of pick and choose what works for you.
It almost feels like the blueprints are open source.
Yeah, it's all up there. Yeah. They've got it up on their website. The source code and the specs are available.
That is awesome.
Yeah, they've got all the information here. It's got their gigabit Ethernet cameras that are connected to a centralized computer system that runs on Ubuntu Linux in the drone itself, or I'm sorry, AUV itself.
That is crazy. You know, and what's weird is if you think about it, it's like I'd much rather see this happening than, say, like Google trying to index the ocean floor.
Yeah.
That scares me.
It is,
so.
yeah. And it's neat that it's built by students, and then it was taken and expanded into something that is now being used for incredible scientific discovery and going somewhere that humans would never be able to go. So it's pretty neat. Hey, you know what else is pretty neat? Our first sponsor this week, and that's DigitalOcean. Hey, go over to DigitalOcean right now. Let's all go over to DigitalOcean and use this promo code while you still can. If you haven't applied this to your account, if you've got a DigitalOcean account and you signed up and forgot to use this promo code, it is not too late. Just use the promo code last November. November's almost over, so let's rock it for the Linux Action Show. And thank DigitalOcean for keeping your favorite Linux podcast on the air. DigitalOcean.com. What is it? Well, it's where Matt and I go to spin up droplets like a mo.
That's right.
DigitalOcean is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up your own cloud server that you get root access to up on DigitalOcean servers. You can get started in less than 55 seconds. In fact, David the Paranoid sent me a screenshot. He says 26 seconds. Look at that. He got his own server spun up in 26 seconds. DigitalOcean really rocks. And for $5 a month, you can get 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, one CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. Think about how much that freaking is.
That is a lot.
That if you need to run your own BitTorrent sync or sync thing instance, it's easily going to do that. And also accommodate your WordPress in your own cloud easily. If you have a podcast that only has a few hundred downloads, you could simply host it up there without any problem. DigitalOcean is screaming fast. They have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, and a really gorgeous, beautiful, screaming fast data center in London. I mean, their hardware is top notch. They invested in SSDs throughout. It's all based on top of Linux and KVM. So you're also supporting a big Linux supporter. They're also a member of the open source community. They had early implementation of CoreOS that's up there right now. But it really all comes down to saving you time and making this straightforward and easy. So that way when you have a project, this isn't your barrier. You know, as somebody who used to set up servers for a living, I can tell you that was a huge, huge barrier. Early on in hosting days, you didn't just go to a dashboard and create a screaming fast, crazy server. You went and ordered a server, maybe from the data center or from a hardware provider directly. You got it racked into a rack. You paid, I'm not kidding you, over $1,000 a month for the rack, the power, the bandwidth used based on peak usage or whatever it might be, especially if you have a couple of servers. And it would take weeks to get set up. Now you can get it set up in under a minute. You can use that amazing intuitive control panel, and you can replicate that control panel on a larger scale with DigitalOcean's straightforward API. And to make DigitalOcean even better, because they now have the best technology in class, they're getting the best tutorials in class, and they're willing to pay up to $200 if you want to write for DigitalOcean. If you got something you know how to set up. I could have been Johnny on the spot with the first OwnCloud 7.
I know, right?
I had that the day of, right? I could have made $200. And they'll have editors that work with you. They have different ranges too, so if you want to write something quick, you don't have to worry about being overwhelmed. They have a range they can pay you. And I think they still have that content editor position open as well if you want to help edit some of those. Because DigitalOcean's serious about this, and they're investing in that position to make sure that they have the best tutorials. So that way you get the best value, the best performance, the best interface, and now the best documentation. Go pick your Linux distribution and build your own server. DigitalOcean.com and use our promo code last November to get a $10 credit. Then you can try out that $5 rig for 2 months for absolutely free. DigitalOcean.com, and a big, big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Thank you, guys. I'm thankful for DigitalOcean.
I am too, and I'm thankful for my droplets. I'm also thankful for the ability to like spin droplets on a whim, and then maybe change my mind
and transfer
drop
them.
one and do another one. I mean, yeah,
and
great.
I've continued to opt. Like I just go in there, I pre-fund the account, and it's a nice manageable.
Oh,
way
that's
for me.
exactly how I do. Yeah, no, I just dump it in there and just forget.
So I got a couple of picks this week. Let's start with an app pick that has been sent in by several people. Rotten Corpse was one of them. I got it on Twitter, and also got it by Crossroads in the comments on the Linux Action Show subreddit. And so it makes me think that it's something people really need. And even though it's not big for me, I can tell there's demand for it. It's called Menu Libre. And everybody who told me about it said, Chris, this is the best menu editor for Linux. And I'm like, okay, all right, okay.
Wow.
And then I'm like, okay, that's fine.
A bold statement.
Like that was the first person to tell me about it was producer Rotten Corpse, and that was the first thing he said to me. Like, okay, Rotten Corpse, sure, you're passionate about it, that's good. Then the next person on Twitter is like, this is the best menu editor for Linux. And then Crossroads in the server was like, no, this is like, it's a shame you've never picked this. It's the best menu editor. So it's a beautiful interface. Of course, it's based on GTK because it really focuses on those desktop. It works for GNOME, LXDE, XFCE, or Unity, so it covers quite a bit of folks.
Cool.
You can add, remove quick lists. You have powerful shortcuts you can create, and I got it installed. Right here, I'll show it to you. Now, here's why I decided I wanted it.
All right.
Again, it's called Menu Libre, and they've got packages for Uri distro. You can find it on their website, linked in the show notes. So, when you get Chrome or Chromium going on your machine and you get those Chrome apps, it automatically adds menu entries for them.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and sometimes I'm
seriously?
like,
that's handy.
So I go in here, so there's the thing though. Maybe I don't want this one. Let's just say,
okay, you're like,
maybe
what?
I
don't want handy. I want to have it difficult.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not a very good example.
Yeah, but no, it's like
make it less
it's
convenient.
not for you. It's not for you.
Yeah, let's just say here, I could give you an example. Like there, you can get an Angry Birds Chrome app, and that would be good for the kids. I don't really want that in my menu. Let's just say, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Or here's another one. I actually never ever click on this Reddit client.
Oh, yeah, I don't know.
So why not delete that from my menu? I could go in there, I could remove it, I could change it, etc.
Right.
So that's one nice thing I found it for. But you can see it's a really nice categorized list. You go in here, you make your changes, it reflects in real time, and you can search for specific apps. So this is another thing that's kind of nice. Like if you want to know the command line that launcher is using or something like that, you could type it into the search box, find it up, and see exactly. So there you go. So it pulls up Plex right there. Oh, here's maps. So this was a very, very well recommended menu editor. Ironically, I find either through launching or just searching, I don't really ever browse. In fact, let's pull up.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't even. Listen, see, I never. Jeez, yeah.
I never could.
I would, if I use this list, I would definitely want to edit this down because that's just my frequent. That's just ridiculous. Woo, yikes. So I don't really use my menu much. I use launchers or the search function. But if you're somebody who's digging through your menu a lot, that could be a really nice way to clean it up or create custom categories, especially if you're doing some deployments and you want to make it real easy. Menu Libre could be your trick.
$10,000 question. Can you actually create custom categories and say,
sure.
I want Mo video, and I want to move.
Or
I want to move all my video into that. Okay.
Or like business directory or whatever,
that's
Acme
that's
Corporation
cool.
many. Yeah,
that actually starts working.
So they got the PPA here, but they got packages or thing.
Packages.
And look,
cool.
Hosted by DigitalOcean.
Well, see, they're doing it right. They get it.
How about that?
That's why the page loaded so quick. Yeah.
And a big thank you to Sean Davis. Sean, apparently you created something a whole lot of people like.
Nice.
So I got a lot of recommendations for that. Now, my next spotlight, I'm going to spotlight 2 open source projects this week. I figured because none of one of them blew me away, but they're each handy in their own right. Well, one is handy, one's kind of a time waster, but an epic time waster. Okay.
Emphasis on the epic.
So our first open source project I want to spotlight is URL Watch. If you've got a website that sure, you could subscribe to an RSS feed, but let's say you just want to know when something changes on the website. Like maybe a new episode pops up on the JB site, Slashdot makes a new post, whatever it is. This app watches a site or multiple sites and then updates you either via several notification options like email or at the terminal when it's happened. You can also run by a cron job. It can output to plain text to an email to you. It can tell you if there's been something it'll just check the header just to see if the header's been modified. It's kind of cool. So here I have an example here. When you first install it, it's called URL Watch, and when you first install it, you have to create a file for it to read.
Oh, that makes sense.
First, I'm going to open up the example file here, and you can see it puts it in .url watch in my home directory, and then urls.txt. It also includes an example, so let's take a look at that. So it's just a real simple, straight list of websites. You just put HTTP in there, and then you put the site in there. You can also give it some extra commands of like what you want to do afterwards. You could also do, instead of something really complicated, you could just put a single URL in there. So I just have, for example, like /dot in there.
That would be really cool, especially if let's say it's a contest page you're watching. They don't have an RSS page.
This is what I was thinking, dude. Like tickets or something, or like some of these developer conferences that sell out in like 13 seconds. Like you could use this to watch all kinds of things.
It's true.
It could be an interesting hack for when you need to watch something that doesn't have an RSS feed. And you can go. You don't have to go just to the top of the domain, right? You can go down deep into a specific page and stuff. So you might be able to dig around.
Oh, better yet, news articles that change things. Right? And
that's a great idea.
Yeah, seriously.
So it's URL watch, and I'll have a link in the show notes because the URL is cray. I don't even know if that's the official URL.
That is
it's
pretty wild, actually.
And they have their packages down here for Debian, Fedora. You got it in the AUR, Gentoo, and Ubuntu? Ubuntu. Never heard of it.
Ubuntu.
Maybe that Mark Shuttleworth guy can explain to us.
Hopefully he can enlighten us.
Now, I have no idea how to pronounce this next one, but Matt, maybe this is up your alley. It's sure up my alley. I think it's called Net Mau.
Sure.
What do you think?
Mau.
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 It's NETMAU. It's a server client card game. So this is the server piece, and they have an experimental Qt client that is linked there too. And you can have multiple people join, and it's for network-based card games. You can do it over the internet, over your LAN. You just have to set up the server.
Oh man, retirement communities. This would be on
right?
fire there, because you could get Martha down there with Sally. And like the Bridge Club is just going Mortal Kombat over this. I could see this definitely.
Chat room says it could be Moo. They say it could be Maui.
Maui. Okay, that I could get behind.
Mau. Anyways,
Mau's no.
I just wanted to toss it in as a bonus pick this week because it's not meaty enough to be a full pick, but come on.
Oh, man.
That's awesome.
That is cool. Well, I mean, really, it's limited only by your imagination because you can plop it wherever you want.
You know where my imagination goes? Bet with Bitcoin.
Oh, nice.
Bet with Bitcoin.
Oh man,
right?
Well, the key is to get yourself a server, say I don't know, Russia,
how's that Doge
somewhere
doing?
not in Washington State. Yeah.
Hey, how come nobody talks about Doge anymore? That just went away, right? Why don't you bet with some Doge, everybody?
Yeah, telling you. Yeah, outside of the whole Washington gambling law thing, as far as online, if you get it outside of the state, I think it's fine.
Don't get me started.
Oh my God.
Do not get me started.
Yeah, I hear you.
That's like Chase's pet peeve. All right, hey, before we run into the news, just a quick PSA. Things are wrapping up over at Jupiter.gift. The Linux Action Show hooded jacket has reached its goal, and I think it ships like tomorrow, maybe. Really soon. It's going to start printing. So if you want to get one of those, you have to get it like right now, whenever you're listening to this. Go to Jupiter.gift. We have a Tech Talk Today hoodie, the hooded Linux Action Show jacket, and my personal favorite, which actually hasn't reached its goal yet. I'm hopeful that it will because I really want one of these, is the Jupiter Broadcasting Polo. This is a nice professional wear that you could wear to work. I wore it over the weekend because I have some demos of it, and it's like the best polo. It's got a good heaviness to it, so it'll be kind of nice for colder weather too, but it also sits really nicely because of that, and the logo is embroidered on there. It's available in multiple colors as well, so you can check those out at Jupiter.gift. 71 towards 100, so we're really close with 2 days left to go on that goal.
Well, it seems like it's an obvious purchase to me because you're going to want a shirt underneath your hoodie. And more importantly, why wouldn't you want, a good logo versus an alligator? I mean, it's like, come on, get something that's actually representative of something you're passionate about. Unless you're into alligators, then that's up to you.
It's a really good shirt. And I don't know, if it doesn't make its goal, maybe we'll run it again some other time. But, I think if you'd all had it, you would definitely. I mean, I think that's why I want it so bad, because I actually held it in my hand.
You actually had the tactile feel. It's like that logo's amazing.
And the black, I dripped salsa on it and then just wiped it right off.
Dude,
right off.
There it is.
It's a nerd version of brush your shoulders off, Matt. It happens.
I'm telling you.
Stains happen constantly. It's amazing I have some of these shirts still. I tell you what. All right, Matt, let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Everybody go to last.ting.com right now. Last.ting.com. That's going to get you $25 off your first Ting device.
Ooh.
And Ting is mobile. It makes sense. Oh, you have a Ting-compatible device? Well, good news. They'll give you a $25 credit. That'll probably last you quite a while. So why Ting? Why have I been using Ting for 2 years? Well, it's pretty simple. Number one, for me, it's pay for what I use. That's the first thing that jumps out at me. They just take my minutes, my messages, and my megabytes, and they add them up. Well, I'm pretty savvy about how I use my voice minutes. I use a lot of data services, but not a lot of voice minutes. And I get my text over services that aren't SMS, Viber, and etc. Mm-hmm. So I'm able to save quite a bit of money, and that's how I'm able to have 3 lines. It's $6 for each line, HTC One, a Nexus 5, and an iPhone, all on my Ting account. I can turn them on, turn them off when I need to. The control panel is awesome, and there's no contract and no early terminations on any of them. That's what I love about Ting. In fact, if you're stuck in a contract now where they've kind of taken advantage of you, Ting will help you out with their early termination relief program. Like they'll pay up to $75 per line.
That just, boom, solved.
What's great about Ting, too, is no-hold customer service. Instead of having to go through a crazy menu tree where you end up just smashing the 0 button to get to somebody or trying to cuss at the voice recognition system.
Your call is important to us. That's why you're on hold for 50 minutes.
Don't put up with that. 1-855-TING-FTW, and a real human being will answer the phone, and they'll solve your problem, too. They don't have to bounce you around. They're the geeks. They've hired Android geeks, smartphone geeks, and they've put them as their customer service. It makes a lot of sense if you think about it. Ting has a great dashboard where you can manage all of this stuff, keep track of your account, and I think you'll really be impressed by the Ting blog, too. I take a trip over there from time to time. Like, they have a blog post right now about deep Black Friday discounts on, or maybe it's actually going to be, technically I think that would be Cyber Monday. December 1st.
I think it is Cyber Monday, yeah. Although it's kind of a Black Friday.
Oh, that's when it ends while quantities last. So there they have it up right now.
Oh, they're already gone.
$95 off the HTC One M8 though.
And it looks like some stuff selling out, man.
$95, $56 off the LG G3. You buy those and then you own those outright, no contract.
M8's a sweet phone, guys.
That's your full rig in your pocket. You get access. You own it. But you know what, Matt? As is per tradition on the Linux Action Show, we can't. I mean, Cyber Monday and Black Friday are great and all, but we're all here for the app pick. And Kyra's here with, I think it's pronounced Ibotta. Kyra, did I get that right?
Want the best Black Friday deals with no in-store hassle?
Yes.
I'm Kyra, and this Ting's App of the Week.
I'm going to grab this right after this clip.
No kidding.
Using Ibotta, you can earn cash back on purchases directly from your smartphone. No coupon cutting or promo hunting required. Before you shop, unlock product rebates in the app by watching a video, taking a poll, learning a fact, or submitting a testimonial.
Oh, nice.
After purchasing your desired goods, take a clear picture of the receipt, scan the barcode, and get paid.
Oh,
you can choose from a ton of categories, or just search through a list of popular rebates and recommended products.
No more mailing.
Using Facebook Sign-In, you can even make a team to collect cash bonuses for you and your friends.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, dude, seriously.
Once you hit $5, Ibotta lets you cash out using PayPal, or you can turn it directly into a gift card. And fun fact, you can still use physical coupons at the store to get more discounts on the products you love. Ibotta users have already earned over $12 million in cashback rebates. So what are you waiting for? Pick it up now on Android and iOS. Both links are in the description below.
I'm going to be honest, awesome. I almost never use those rebates because you got to mail it in.
Right, yeah. See, and I always let my wife handle it because I forget.
Yeah. So that sounds like the solution for me. So go to last.ting.com, go grab yourself a phone. They've got everything from feature phones at incredible prices, data-only MiFi devices with no contract, a $6 hotspot, all the way to the top-end Android devices. And go grab yourself a SIM card for the Nexus 6. They also can support that. Last.ting.com. And a big thanks to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show.
Then you can say, hey, I bought a great phone.
Hey, Matt, speaking of great things, a new version of Linux Mint, version 17.1 is out, and we'll have a review for you soon. Well, let's talk about the Cinnamon version, because that's one I'm really excited about, because we've been talking about Mate a lot. So just at a high level, though, 17.1 is a long-term support release, which means you can install this sucker and have support until 2019.
Wow.
It comes with updated software and refinements, many new features. I've been taking a look at the Mint version. I've been saving, the Mate Cinnamon version. I've been saving, installing the RC. I've been waiting for, the complete package. I did give in over the weekend, though, on my Archbox at home. I put Cinnamon on there, 2.4, because it just looks so good. They've got so many nice refinements. In fact, they say that all Cinnamon components were reviewed and their source code was checked with static analysis tools, although most of them are small. They fixed about 30 memory leaks. Icons used in Cinnamon settings were added to the Mint X icon theme to make that look nice. This increases responsiveness. And there's just all over polish, like the new zoom animation, which they give credit to Gnome Shell. They have modules and Cinnamon settings and categories, which are now sorted alphabetically, easier to find them. Super key plus E now opens up the home directory. And they say Cinnamon 2.4, Clem writes, has many small refinements like multiple panel launchers, improved sound applets, and a lot of bug fixes. So this looks like a really, and look at the way you do the theme now, Matt. You click on the box.
Okay,
and it does
so slides, huh?
Yeah.
They had me at bug fixes and memory leak fixes. That's a big thing for me.
Cinnamon already has kind of a classy feel to it.
It does.
When you're using it, so you just keep polishing that up and making it nicer and nicer. Anyways, we'll give a review for you soon, but the new release is out as of this weekend.
Nice.
Mate version, version and cinnamon version are available for download. Mint 17.1. Congratulations to the Mint project. This looks like it might be one of your best releases ever, just from what I've read. I can't wait to install it and give it a try and see if it really is.
I'm excited to take that for a spin.
Speaking of Debian derivatives, it's happening, Matt. Roll up your sleeves.
It's happening.
The Debian fork is real, and fundraising is starting. It's got a brand new name. It's pronounced Devon. And you can find it at devon.org, DEVUAN.org. And they are raising funds right now. I think, let's refresh it. See, as we do this, they have raised, let's see, I think it only updates every so often.
Okay.
$893 via PayPal.
Wow.
$650 via Stripe, and 0.19 Bitcoins.
Okay. Well,
so,
that's,
They say here on the page, please be patient. We're updating this by hand with aux scripts.
Okay.
So here we go. They're really going to try to do it. They say, dear init freedom lovers, the Veteran Unix Admin Collective salutes you. Our project is called Devon, and developers can email us at onelove@devon.org. They say we started setting up the first bits of core infrastructure to host a website, mailing lists, and a package repository. We're updating materials on the GitHub Devon page, Dev1.
I kind of like the name. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad.
It's kind of slick.
So, they say they're gonna try to reuse a lot of the Debian infrastructure and tools.
Oh yeah.
I just can't get upset about this.
Props on the cool name. Go for it.
I wish,
that's cool. Hey, whatever.
Here would be like if I had a wish list, Matt. I would say, boy, it would sure be great if it didn't come across as resisting change, and because I don't believe that's what it's about. I think there could be legitimate concerns with systemd. Anytime you take something and you make it a commonality across a lot of systems, that becomes a common point of attack, for example. So there could be risks of exposed vulnerabilities. However, that could be true with the kernel. That could be true with more. That could be true with less. Right? Any of these tools you use, OpenSSL. So it is not a new problem.
Well, and at the end of the day, it's also like you got to remember, it's like getting upset about some minor distro off in the sunset somewhere. It's going to fill a niche. It's going to fill a need. The people that use it are going to be thrilled with it, and the rest of the world isn't going to care. Yeah. And that's not a negative thing. I mean, I like the fact they're doing something positive versus just complaining.
Right. I kind of feel like
whatever.
It's good in a sense because it gives people that are really upset about this a place to go and focus that energy, to think about where they want to contribute. And to that end, I don't think it's actually that bad. I was just looking, I saw this weekend on the Linux subreddit, and I'm not seeing it now. Of course, it's probably just because I'm doing it live. Yeah. But somebody posted NetBSD 14 years. Oh yeah, here it is. This was a great post. 14 years ago, when NetBSD was debating the adoption of their rc.d system, their init system, there was massive upset about it. They said it's not the BSD way. These changes were contentious and generated some of the liveliest discussion of any feature change ever made in NetBSD. This is a quote, there was no consensus on one true design. Wow. They said things like, let's see, here's a quote, switching from etc.rc is not the BSD way was a common one. A lot of the detractors were quite vocal. It was they thought it was like the biggest upset they'd ever had. Jeez. And of course now they've been using it for 14 years over at NetBSD. So it to me when I look at what that Dev1 project is doing, I kind of think, well, they were obviously done with Debian anyways, so their energy wasn't going to go there anyway. So it's not. I don't really see it as diverting resources because those resources were gone anyways.
They were mentally in a whole
checked
other
out.
Yeah, they've already checked out. It's fine. Hey, I have no problem with that at all. I mean, it's kind of like, how Betamax is going to go ahead and kill the movie industry. And boy, it really mauled it. It was terrible. Oh, that's right. Betamax doesn't exist anymore.
Or HD DVD,
or HD DVD, oh God, or Laserdisc or whatever.
I look at it and it's kind of like that too. But also I think, sure, if I could wave a magic wand, if I could rub my hair and make anything happen, I would love to have everybody work together and everybody would work on one desktop environment, right? We'd have one amazing file system. But the problem with that, if you play that out to its logical conclusion, is monocultures can be the death of a system, because if that thing goes away or something goes wrong with it, what do you got left? So, you know what? Let's see what happens. Maybe it'll get traction somewhere. I would bet not a lot of enterprises are going to be jumping on board a Debian fork like this.
No, it's definitely gonna fill a niche, and it's a little bit like if they didn't do this and they did say, okay, you know what, we're just gonna all stomach something we can't stand, and we're just gonna complain of it. It's gonna basically turn into like a Microsoft type culture.
Yeah, it'd be hostile.
It would be terrible, and so. Hey, this is great. If it makes them happy, awesome.
Kind of along the same line, it's kind of interesting. I didn't realize this wasn't news. So, my co-host on TechSnap, Alan, he attends pretty much all of the big BSD meetups, and he just got back from MeetBSD, and they talked very openly at MeetBSD about designing a new init system for FreeBSD. Oh. So they're at the very early stages when I think Red Hat was looking at the creation of systemd. And so John Hubbard, which was one of the co-founders of FreeBSD, is now the CTO for IX Systems. He gave a talk at MeetBSD California 2014 about replacing the rc.d init system in FreeBSD. The audio is not awesome because it's somebody recording it in the audience, right. But I want to capture it too because not only do they talk about why FreeBSD needs something like systemd, but they make reference to the systemd debate and have a chuckle at Linux's expense.
Oh yeah.
So I'll play just a little bit of this clip.
All we've done is there's an old saying, you can't polish a turd, but you can paint it. And all we've done is paint it a number of times. And we put, quite colorful paint on it from time to time, and we've extracted it out into user local and other side directories where you might want to put other configuration files. But the real fundamental problem with this approach is that dependencies are explicit. You have to know what depends on what. And that becomes really rapidly intractable. And it's static. You declare that set of dependencies once, but things can't kind of check in later and say, hey, I just arrived. I was installed 5 minutes ago. I depend on these things. Start me up when those things happen. Or don't start me until this other thing happens. It's really hard to do that. Again, you can do it manually. You can do service, blah, start, and you can do anything manually. The question is, do you really want to? So I'm trying not to suggest LaunchD, but
LaunchD is Mac OS X's init system, similar in some ways to systemd, but obviously created a long time ago. But now he's going to mention systemd.
Even the Linux diehards, they've got systemd. They've had their huge debates about it. They seem to have mostly died down. But the fundamental concept behind both, even if you were to come up with FreeBSD and say that was far better, I'd be totally cool with it as long as you follow the same basic outlines, which is check in, use IPC or timers or hardware events to start things, and have everything completely asynchronous.
And so Alan tells me that now nothing's locked in, but they're considering LaunchD because I guess it's licensed by Apple under some open license that's compatible with BSD's license. Okay. And they're looking at the same problem that systemd solves and says, we need to do this. We need to implement something like systemd. And he even says there, the Linux guys had their systemd debate, and that's pretty much died down. They've settled on it. And in the interview we're about to have with Mark Shuttleworth, I'll ask him, why did you switch from Upstart to systemd, but stick with Mir instead of Wayland? Because to me, I was wondering, where's the difference there? And so he explains some of the logic behind the Ubuntu project's choice to switch over to systemd. So it's kind of interesting, and that was part of FreeBSD's 10-year plan. So we'll see where they take that and where that goes, and we'll see if maybe they do get something that kind of ends up looking like
and I really appreciated the fact when he talked about these things that it needs and the things that they're going. No one ranted and raved or threw onions at him or screamed and yelled. I kind of envy the maturity I see in their culture.
I think that doesn't really happen as much in the Linux community in person, right? It happens online. Yeah. I think we get a bad rap for it, but when you're having person-to-person meetings, and this is why I think the meet-space stuff is so important, is you treat each other like humans. You realize there's a person there. You realize that person is intelligent and not just misinformed. Like there's a deeper connection that's made, and the debates. And the thing is, this is what the BSDs are really, really good at right now. Is they have a core team, and that core team meets up 3 or 4 times a year or more, and they really iron this stuff out, and they talk to each other, and they make the proposals. And if you look at how Lennart Pottering really moved systemd forward, is he went to all these events. He stood up on the projector and broke systemd down, and then YouTube videos of that went out, and that sold people on the technical merits of systemd. Yes. And it wasn't, yes, his Google Plus posting and public posts online helped, but I think what really sealed the deal and got the ground support from the user buy-in was those person-to-person meetings, and that's That's where the BSD community is beating us. And I think that, I mean, we have them, but they're very commercialized now. As somebody who's been to a lot of them this year, the big ones are very commercialized. This kind of collaboration is not happening. What is happening is, here's our services and how they work with Linux, and here's our services and here's how we utilize Linux, and here's how we can work with you, and here's how we can connect our APIs. It is not about these core things. Now, these do happen. There's the plumbers conferences and things like that, but they don't get nearly as much coverage because they're just the geeks getting together and meeting, and they don't have the spotlight. Yeah, I agree. I think if more people understood how those I wish we could maybe we could go to those meetings and do interviews and show it the way that the BSD Now show does. Because, by the way, I should mention this topic has been and is being discussed on BSD Now. They are interviewing the people that are doing this work on our BSD Now show. So if you're fascinated by this topic, you should definitely tune into BSD Now, because they're going to these plumber type conferences where these people are meeting, and they're asking them questions directly. See, in the Linux community, the ones you're invited to, the ones the public are supposed to come to, it's a sales meeting.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there's one-to-ones, like the fests are much more organic, right? They're much more of a community, but there's still a fair amount of selling and presenting going on there. At these Meet BSD conferences, they're 100, 200 people, right? They're not very large,
right.
And the majority of them are people who are writing code. And you go to these conferences and actual code gets written, and then people check that code out at the conference. It's extremely productive, and that I think is really a benefit to BSD because of their core their way that they're designed even.
I would agree with that. I would differ in one thing though. 2004, did a presentation at Linux Fest, and I had 3 people in the audience. Oh, no, I wouldn't say they were angry, but they were hostile. They were Linux doesn't need to be newbie friendly, and that's just not
I have seen that
type of thing. So I think that MeetSpace helps. I mean, it probably keeps them from going completely bat crazy, but there's still tension there, and so I think that mentality of change.
It's not as bad as it is online, but it does still happen.
But it only seems to happen to people that are doing presentations. I've seen it at other presentations. If you're just talking with folks in the hallway, that doesn't seem to be a problem.
Right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's the presenters.
Yeah. Always is.
Hey, just take it as a good, hearty debate.
Exactly.
Hey, before we run, just a couple of my favorite open source projects have had some great updates this week. Web Update alerted us to Handbrake 0.10. Handbrake is a great media encoder. If you need to just take something and put it on like a device, like an Android or an iPad or whatever, a Roku, whatever, Handbrake is the way to do it. You combine Make MKV with Handbrake, and you've really got some magic. Version 10, or version 0.10, I guess. A couple of things I like a lot about this new update. They now have support for VP8. You might know that as WebM, which is very nice. And they have a brand new version of the X264 encoder, which is magic in a bottle, and it's seriously one of the most incredible technological innovations in our time. And then also, they now have upgraded to GTK3 on Linux and have also made improvements to the auto-naming feature on Linux. A couple of Linux-only exclusives in there. Also some great new, just all kinds of great new things, like support for OpenCL 1.1 now for encoding, but right now on Linux it's only available in the command line version. But there's support for GPU encoding now getting integrated to Handbrake, which is just crazy great.
I came for the presets and I stayed for the encoding.
Yeah, all new presets too. They've updated.
Oh, really?
Well, not all, but a lot of new presets. Okay. Yeah,
because the presets were like, it just won me over instantly. I was just like, oh man, this is so great. I don't have to care. Boom, done.
Yeah, totally. And also X265 in there now too, which you may or may not. Yeah. Hey, so I just want to cover something to clarify, and then we'll run with the news. SyncThing is still going to be called SyncThing. Did you hear about this?
No.
So SyncThing was going to be Pulse, and now it's still going to be SyncThing. And I didn't really report on it in last because I just wasn't sure where this was going, and I wanted to wait, see how things turned out. Well, so the SyncThing author was joining up with ind.ie, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. But he says, you may recall that I announced that SyncThing was going to be named Pulse. Now, I should probably back up. SyncThing it's like a Dropbox replacement. It's better in some senses than most of the file sharing services out there because it's totally open source, right? Like whereas BitTorrent Sync is pretty handy, but BitTorrent Sync recently announced a new pricing structure once they go out of beta. You should check that out if you haven't yet. And of course, it's closed source. And when you're talking your data, you might prefer to have your solution open source. So SyncThing is really attractive for that reason. And it sounded like it was going to be changing, maybe going under a different stewardship. That was about a month ago. Well, it turns out that's not happening, not exactly in that manner. SyncThing is going to remain SyncThing.
Okay.
There's going to be a fork called Pulse.
Oh.
The reason was personal for the developer. He says, in the position as a lead developer, I felt that the fit between me and in.ie isn't really what I thought it was. In.ie has taken on a fight against the current ruling business and privacy models, and it's a fight I support. Many others support it too, as we can see from currently funding drive that's going, that it's getting some support. And he wishes it nothing but success, but it's also a fight the developer feels he doesn't have energy for and doesn't feel like he should be an active part of it. Having SyncThing be a cornerstone of this fight would make involvement unavoidable for him. So in the end, it would either mean withdrawing himself from SyncThing or from Indie, and he chose the latter. So they're in.ie, whatever, is going to do its own thing. They'll release a fork of SyncThing called Pulse. They're going to work together and share some code. It seems pretty amicable, and Pulse has its own goals, which they've outlined on their blog, which is linked further in this post.
It definitely feels like they want to stay out of the crosshairs on that. And, honestly, if you're just there to develop a tool that does things, I get that. I really do. So
Pulse will continue on, and in the blog post here, they talk about where they're going to take Pulse. So I think this is sort of the best world. The developer gets to work on what he wants to be passionate about, what he wants to focus his energies on. Pulse will get some features that maybe SyncThing won't get on its own, because it sounds like from this post, Pulse will have its own full-time developer. We'll see how that pans out, and we'll see what kind of code develops of that. But either way, if the two projects can work together through, coming back together from time to time, everybody could be better off.
Definitely.
And just as it's not really a pick, but it's kind of a bonus announcement. SyncThing-GTK is now a GUI with IO Notify support, so you can see you'll get notifications when the file system's been updated. And so now there's a GTK app to sync things, so you don't have to just use the web browser.
Yeah, between that and the BitTorrent sync stuff, I might, especially with the pricing thing, that's what really kind of bums me out. Yeah. I might really, I might give this another spin.
Yeah, I think I will too, actually.
Yeah.
And now that I can get notifications, it's nice to get notifications of files updated. I just like to know when things are changing. Yep. So, and this is the GTK version here. It looks pretty nice.
It looks really tidy. I like the color coordination there. That's
it's taken some of the best elements of the web UI and put it in a GTK app, and it works for me. So I'm gonna give SyncThing another shot. I think I don't know when, but probably pretty soon. And there's a lot of really easy ways to set it up, like on a lot of different systems now.
Definitely. So I love the out of sync option. Just the readability of it's really handy. I can glance at it, know instantly. Do I have a problem?
Yeah, that is nice. Yeah, I wish it made it easier to do wide distributed, so I could just give people keys. But I'll figure that out. All right, Matt. That's all the news for this week. I can't wait to talk with Mark Shuttleworth and look over the 10 years of Ubuntu and all of the questions I have for him. But before we get to that, I want to thank our segment sponsor, and that's System76. Go over to system76.com and get yourself a computer designed to run Ubuntu. Talk about a machine that's going to give you no trouble. From Ultrabooks to laptops to full-fledged desktops, System76 has something that'll probably fill your need. And I will admit, as the end of the year gets closer, I start thinking about those tax write-offs, and I think System76 reads my mind. They have a sale right now on the Leopard Extreme and the Sable Touch. Wow, those are two great machines. You can go to system76.com right now. Get yourself a machine designed to run Linux. Stop fighting with your hardware and play with your Ubuntu. System76.com, and tell them the Linux Action Show sent you. Well, I am extremely excited to welcome Mark Shuttleworth to the show. Mark, welcome to the Linux Action Show.
Thank you very much, and let me second your story of System76. They do a truly beautiful job, and they bring the same kind of passion to the hardware that I think our community brings to Ubuntu and to free software itself.
Well said, and I don't know if you saw, they just announced lifetime Ubuntu support when you buy their hardware. So that's a commitment. That's a great commitment. So, Mark, we have so many things we could talk about, but I thought maybe the most appropriate thing would be to start with we just recently, I think at the end of October, celebrated the 10-year mark of Ubuntu, which is incredible just right there on its own. And first of all, I cannot believe it's been 10 years, which kind of makes me feel old. I don't know. I can't imagine how it makes you feel. But I wanted to start there. Looking back now over the 10 years, so much has changed. I mean, the entire market is totally different. Is there any of those original ideas that really motivate you to take such a crazy commitment like this and push it forward? Are some of those still driving you today, or has sort of that original motivation changed into something different? What drives you now, and how has it changed since you started, is the question.
So I think many of the core values of Ubuntu remain important and remain key motivators for us. So Linux for Human Beings was the tagline, and it wasn't just a marketing spiel, right? I mean, there was a real passion I have a real passion, and I think many of the people who join the Ubuntu community have a real passion to bring the full depth and richness of free software to the widest possible audience. You were talking about a project that you're aware of to put Ubuntu laptops into the hands of school kids. What makes me so excited about that is because I think of all the potential in the curiosity and minds of those school kids. And I can think of nothing more liberating than this enormous portfolio of tools and software from this enormous crowd, this ecosystem of free software developers, putting that in the hands of someone who is kind of bright and untainted and unvarnished and unprejudiced, and unleashing them to go and create the next wave of amazing things. So for me, Linux was and is a platform for innovation. And I want to bring the very best of it, the very best of the full breadth of it, to the widest possible audience. And that remains as true today as it did back then. Yeah. Obviously, the places that we can bring people that platform are now much more diverse. We talked about, in the early days, we talked about CDs and laptops and support for laptop hardware. Today, we've got the cloud, and it's really important to unleash people's innovation on the cloud as well. And then we have these new emerging class of devices, right? And those are going to be the things that most of the next generation of innovators and entrepreneurs play with, the things that they create with, and we want to bring free software to that as well.
And I want to get to some of the devices and the cloud stuff because I think it's a super fascinating trajectory that Ubuntu has found itself on. But before we go too far away from 10 years ago, when Ars Technica wrote up about the 10th anniversary of Ubuntu, they labeled it as the criticized king. And I wonder how, I feel like people probably watch you and watch the Ubuntu project, and some of them may be inspired to start their own projects. Has this criticized king title, do you think it's true? I mean, to me, from watching from the outside, it seems like pretty much every decision becomes a controversy these days. And has that been difficult? Do you find that to be draining? Does it steal some motivation?
Very interesting. I think the thing that I would ask people to take away from that is the recognition that if they themselves choose to take a leadership role in anything in life, that part of what comes with that is the recognition that it becomes attractive to critique and criticize your leadership, right? And to me, this is just like a truism that you can't aspire to leadership without also recognizing that everyone's a critic and everyone's got an opinion. And so you've got to be able to lead despite that, rather than leading in the absence of that. You can't wilt in the face of that.
Are you concerned though that that sometimes there's too much headwinds for? I mean, for you're in a unique position, Mark. You have some stature now in the community, but for somebody coming up, is it too challenging now?
Well, I do think as a free software community, we have to ask, the question that, do we slip too easily into critique? It's very easy to throw stuff out there on the internet. It's very easy to say you don't like something. It's very easy even to become quite polarized, and it's quite satisfying to become, to have a proper rant, have a proper venting on that. But you've got to ask, what have you changed? Right? What have you, just by standing up there and throwing your toys out of the cot, what have you actually changed? Well, nothing. If anything, there's a risk that the most that you've changed is demotivating the other guy. Now, some of the critique, some of the criticized king thing, if you look at who's criticizing Ubuntu, to some extent, right? Well, our competitors are frustrated, right? And I don't resent that at all. I regret that at all. I think it's I think it's bad planning on their side if they think that throwing toys out of cots is going to slow us down. It certainly won't. Right. And but yeah. So some of the ranting towards Canonical and Ubuntu is just straight competitive FUD, right? Some of it is genuine sort of human opinions. It's like people think we should do something differently, or they think we should do something else. And to that I say, well, stand up and lead that, right? So for example, in Ubuntu, I make a real effort to do what we can to enable people to build other things than what we want to build off Ubuntu. There's an enormous amount of goodwill and value contributed to Ubuntu by people who want that to be as widely used as possible, and that should support other desktop environments as well, not just the one that we lead, right? So but the best way to register your your own ideas and opinions then is to stand up and lead something else. You don't have to tear a leader down in order to lead something different, something more insightful.
And you sort of acted on that recently. I know, to be honest, you surprised me. And maybe this is just my misinterpretation, but to me, in the cloud space, which seems to be a pretty important market to Canonical, it would seem like maybe your largest competitor in that space, in the Linux space, is Red Hat. But yet, not too long ago on your blog, you announced that Ubuntu would eventually adopt systemd, primarily a Red Hat-led project. So in a sense, you announced that a Canonical will be adopting a major software component from your biggest competitor. That, to me, was a pretty surprising move, and it's sort of a unique aspect of open source. I wonder if you could share your insights. Was that a struggle to make that choice, or was it just a no-brainer to be competitive in the cloud environment?
No. So let's talk a little bit about that, because I think it's interesting, how could you justify not using something really good just because it comes from a competitor? It's a sort of bizarre thing, you know what I mean? And I think this is very, very clean for me. One should never be prejudiced against a piece of code just because of where it comes from. That's crazy, right? It's code. It's open code, right? Mm-hmm. And so for me, that's a very easy choice to make. And in fact, once Debian had made its choice, it was clear that the balance of things there for us was that was a choice we were going to have to accept. And what I wanted to signal to my own community there was, let's not argue about this. Let's not get all uptight about it. Let's not tear ourselves apart over it. It's just code. Mm-hmm. Climb in and use it. Did we think that technically there was a better way? Of course we did. Is that choice entirely up to us in a world where we are the other half of the Debian coin, right? Mm-hmm. Not everyone in Debian will think of it that way, but that's how we think about it. We're the other half of the same coin. So is that choice entirely up to us? No, it isn't. And so it got made, and that's that. Would I, resist a piece of code just because it came from a competitor? Absolutely not. If it's the right technical thing to choose, then we should choose it. And that's that, right?
That seems extremely rational.
In fact, I think some of our competitors are completely selling themselves short by not doing this. Canonical produces a lot of code. Our competitors love to say that we don't, but we really do.
Right, yeah.
We generate an enormous amount of code, an enormous number of ideas and projects. And some of our competitors are just so resistant to just using some of the good stuff that we produce. And I think that's crazy on their part. I don't mind that they do it, but I certainly wouldn't make that mistake.
Yeah. Well, and
it's there and it's good, and we can adopt it. Why not adopt it?
It seems very now. Of course, now the flip side of that coin, and I think maybe why folks. I think what it is it's a lack of the business requirements. But when people saw the decision to launch Mir, they assumed, oh well, systemd will be just part of that same cloth. It's going to be Ubuntu going off and blazing its own trail. And so, would you, for people who don't quite understand, could you help us understand where it's in one case it's within Canonical's best interest to independently develop Mir and push that forward as opposed to Wayland, but in the systemd case, instead of continuing to evolve Upstart, it's better to go with systemd. That seems like sort of similar choices, but there's probably underlying business reasons that lead you to different conclusions.
Well, the first thing is to sort of separate commercial stuff from engineering stuff, and in both cases, both Mir and sorry, let me even come back even further. I mean, the first thing is not to assume that an institution is stupid. I don't assume that Red Hat's stupid, right? Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes there's a lot of noise that's put out on the internet where the heart of the message is those guys are stupid, and
they
so
just
of course they've done something stupid, right?
Right.
I'm not sure there's a lot of evidence, of stupidity, right?
Yeah.
So that's the first thing, right? Don't go out there and base your entire theory on why someone's done something because they must be stupid, or because they have some sort of conniving commercial interest. Most of the stuff is free anyway. So where's the commercial interest? It isn't there, right? So that's the first thing. Take that out of the argument. In both cases, in the case of Upstart and in the case of Mir, both of those projects are entirely engineering-led at Canonical, right? They're engineers saying, hey, we think there's a better way to get something done. The interesting thing in the case of Upstart is Upstart obviously came long before systemd. It was Canonical engineers that said, hey, we want to write some new code. We think the existing stuff isn't up to scratch, and we've got some views on how to make it much, much better, and that led to Upstart. And remember, Upstart got adopted by, amongst other things, RHEL, right? Upstart is running in RHEL. And then the systemd guys came along and said, well, we want to do something different. Now, there was some sledging in the middle of all of that. There was some sort of political reasoning about essentially saying we don't want to use canonical code, right? Or we don't want to contribute to a canonical project, which I think is dumb, but that's what they chose to do. And I don't think it's a bad thing that engineers get to go out and explore the things that they think they understand. I don't understand this stuff better than they do. So to a certain extent, as long as they can produce a clear, coherent argument, whether it's Red Hat engineers going off to produce systemd or canonical engineers going off to produce Mir, I think that's really good. That's good for open source, like we're exploring new territory. So both of these are engineering-led projects, Upstart and Mir. Here's the difference in sort of my view on them and why I think it's okay for us to actively pursue something different in the case of Mir and alignment with Debian in the case of systemd. Systemd is massively invasive, and I don't say that in a negative way, right? It's not a prejudicial term, but it does touch and require that other people touch huge amounts of code.
Right.
So every single daemon that gets started is going to have to adapt to systemd.
Yes.
And more than that, every single administrator is going to have to figure out how to use it. And more than that, it's not just going to do init. That's the thing that's currently tearing Debian apart, right? It's not like they bought into an init system. It's they bought into a thing, and that thing is going to go everywhere or could go everywhere. It's a blank check, and everyone, the people who are on the opposing side of this are not so much opposed to init,
and it's still
they're
growing.
Opposed to what else they're going to have to subscribe to, right? So that makes systemd a very difficult thing for us to divorce from Debian on, because that means everything's going to be different everywhere in the system, right?
Right. Much more.
It also meant that I thought we should really think about the user impact of this, because every user is going to have to adapt to a systemd world, for better or worse, right? That may be a wonderful thing for them, or it may be a terrible thing for them, but it's something that everybody's going to have to do.
Right.
Now contrast that with Mir, right? Have you ever typed a Mir command?
No.
Have you ever, does any developer have to touch that? No. There's like 5 developers that have to touch that, right?
Right. I mean, it's assuming the toolkit supports there.
And the toolkits.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That's it. So I think what you've got to understand is that politically, Mir got turned into this massive thing. It's a tiny little part. And it's a tiny little part that has all sorts of properties around correctness and performance for everything else. So that's why I'm quite comfortable backing a team that says, look, they have some crisp insights. They really want to do this. Our users will never know one way or the other. We could switch from Mir to Wayland and like 5 people would have to worry about it. We could switch from Wayland to Mir and like 5 people have to worry about it. The fact that this got turned into a massive internet blowfest really tells you something about some of the competitive dynamics and the political sledging.
Do you believe? So
that's there's no reason for it to be an issue at all.
That's kind of my next question is, and I think I've seen you comment. I think you might have equated it almost to American politics. The tone that some of these, which should be merit-based technical discussions, are taking a much broader, much deeper and nastier tone. And I think you saw almost a next wave, a next generation of it kicking off with the Mir debate, and now it seems every single little thing after it is these, in the case of Debian, like you said, it's tearing them apart, and it's sort of sad to watch. What is with this tone?
I think the only way to deal with that is just tell people to stop and ask them why they're involved in what they're involved in. Right. If you're just here to be a talking head, and you're just going to bring opinions to the table, then you need to back off, because we're trying to get stuff done here.
Do you think it's the result of the size of the communities now, that there's just so many people involved that there's just not as many people actually producing code?
Well, no, I think it's more got to do with the fact that it's so easy to contribute an opinion because of the evolution of sort of the social thing, right?
Right.
So it used to be that if you wanted to have an opinion on how Debian did something, you needed to show up, you needed to become a Debian developer, you need to go through a process that essentially gave you a sophisticated understanding of how all the parts fit together and who's contributing what and who's responsible for what.
And get a sense of the
culture. Now you can just throw comments at LWN, or you can just throw comments on Slashdot or somewhere else, right? So I think that's the real issue. And it's the same thing with Gamergate, right? it's that in a sense it's so cheap just to throw another opinion on the fire, and in some ways it's rewarding to put out an opinion that's somehow polarized. And so as a result, we get a lot of polarizing opinions. It's not surprising, right?
Right.
But I do think we have to be willing to defend our communities for it. And so, you may have noticed that, inside the Ubuntu community, we just continue to invest in building a clear, constructive conversation for people who want to get stuff done. And that's why we, I think, continue to just, steamroller forward, not just with Unity and Ubuntu, but actually across huge tracts of free software, right? Because people feel they can come there, be part of that conversation, and get stuff done.
Yeah.
We have an incredible community council that are very thoughtful and supportive of a clear conversation. And we also, we don't fool ourselves that you can have a technical meritocratic decision by 500 people, right? You take a decision as to the 3 people who need to make a decision, and then they get on and do it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Do you think this is going to be? I'm looking forward to maybe the next 10 years of Ubuntu. Is this going to be a problem that people get burnt out on and it starts to fade away, or is this? I worry that it creates a toxic environment in an open community because it's so much about people's passions and getting involved and self-motivation that I'm worried that this toxic environment may actually, in the end, result in less code, result in less things moving forward.
I think it definitely does. I think you're exactly right. And I think we should call it out. There's that thing saying ignore the trolls.
Yeah.
No, don't ignore the trolls. Just very calmly say you're a troll and you're not welcome here, right? Like you've got to be willing to show up, willing to get stuff done for your opinion to be something that we're really going to consider. That, and you also have to really care about why. You know what I mean? I think that's, again, what sets Ubuntu apart is we're really trying to make something that lots of people will use, and that imposes certain constraints on your decision making, right? It's not okay to do something that's technically brilliant but completely unusable, right? Because it doesn't fit the story that we're telling.
Yeah, very much so. All right, well, let's shift gears a little bit. You talked about cloud and mobile. I don't know about you, but watching from the outside, it seemed to me that the Ubuntu project clearly started with, which at the time was incredibly ambitious, a 6-month release cycle featuring the latest GNOME to make desktop Debian actually usable and accessible by the masses. And that's obviously still a component of it. But what seems to me, which has sort of sprung off from that initially, was this fairly successful cloud platform adoption that Ubuntu has seen. And I, Mark, my background is an IT systems administrator, and I began deploying Ubuntu systems, especially, when the LTS releases started to become more common. Why did this desktop operating system sort of become one of the number one contenders in OpenStack and cloud hosting? What happened?
Well, so credit for this depends, I think falls to many other people rather than me. First, in the early days of AWS, there was a core group of users who were really pushing things forward. I'm thinking of guys like Eric Hammond and other folks who were early adopters of Amazon and spoke publicly about what they do and why they do it, and they were comfortable with Ubuntu and using Ubuntu, and we then recognized that quite a lot of really interesting people were using Amazon, and we asked the core Ubuntu server team to go figure out what the points of friction were there and how we could make Ubuntu really, really great for those folks. And I think that work, which is 5-7 years ago, that really paid off in terms of then accelerating the adoption of Ubuntu in cloud environments. Also, I think we really understood that the cloud has a different set of core values. You care about productivity in the cloud because you've got to go very, very fast. Your developers are taking more decisions related to operations, right? DevOps. So developers are more in the driving seat in terms of platform choices and so on. And a lot of things in Ubuntu, I think, are empowering for developers. I think the most important thing for us to realize is that the world moves very, very quickly, and things that were ahead of the curve in the past aren't necessarily going to be ahead of the curve in the future. So the 6-month release cycle was very aggressive and very fast 10 years ago. Whereas today, I think, there's quite a lot of interesting software out there on a 6-week release cycle.
Right.
So we have to figure out how to continue to raise the bar, raise the game. And
are you watching?
Well, I don't have any announcements today.
Okay.
Watch the space, right?
Yes. I'm sure we
think
will
they
be.
can help developers go even faster on the cloud than they currently are.
Are you watching CoreOS at all? Have you seen this?
Sure, CoreOS. There's tons of sort of real innovation there. Docker, of course,
yes,
helping developers go faster. And I'm really proud of how popular Ubuntu is in the Docker community. And if anyone listening to the show has ideas about how we can make Ubuntu even better for a Docker world, let me know. And
talk about developing fast, right? I mean, Docker really has just been around for about a year, and it's already huge. And Ubuntu is sort of in a good position to take advantage of that. And
I think there's something like 6 times as many Docker images based on Ubuntu as on the next most popular operating system.
I've heard rumors of that.
I think a lot of the popularity of Ubuntu in the cloud has translated there. But I don't want to take it for granted. If there's stuff that we can do, we're working with the Docker crowd. They're obviously savvy, fast-moving, fast-thinking folks. But I'm very open to suggestions. So if there are other things that we can do, then that would be great. And I do think we can deliver Ubuntu in a form which is if you're just going to do Docker, which is kind of crisper for that purpose. So
as we transition, I want to talk a little bit with you about Ubuntu on mobile. But before we make that transition, I think a common question in the Linux Action Show audience is, how can Canonical, with constrained resources, how can you be great at desktop, cloud, and mobile? How can you do all three? How can you juggle all three priorities and be great at all of them?
Well, so the mobile one is hard. But what if I said that it's my firm view that personal computing will converge, and that phone, tablet, desktop, maybe even augmented reality will all be the same thing? So if that's true, and I really believe that that's true, then we have to, if we want to be in personal computing, in other words, if we want to be in the desktop, right, then we have to find a way to be relevant across that full spectrum. And it was very clear that the existing free software projects just didn't see that and just weren't going to make that easy to do, right? There's no way we could get GNOME or KDE onto a phone, right? It just wasn't going to happen, right? Of course, if we're successful in that, then I'm sure history will get revisited and those things will all find their way there. But there was no way that was going. We were going to have to lead the story of an open GNU Linux on a phone if we wanted that at all. So and that's genuinely how I believe. So it was this really tough.
It's all
steep hill to climb. It's a very big mountain.
But you see it all as almost the same effort in a sense. You see it as sort of the same effort in a sense. Then it's all one effort.
Yeah, absolutely. So to be relevant in personal computing, we have to be relevant across that full spectrum.
Well, and it seems like the commercial vendors are bearing this out. So let's see, Microsoft has continuity, Apple has handoff, and Samsung just announced something else. It's sort of like it's this move between all your devices kind of thing, but it doesn't
Window management on Android.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like any of them are quite getting it right, but they all seem to have kind of gotten the idea, but they're not executing right. Let's just take the big dog, right? Like Microsoft, they seem to be blowing it.
Think about this. In 2009, 5 years ago, Canonical started leading Unity, and think of how much flack we took from the free software community for that, right? Well, how hard does it have to be to try to help free software be part of the future? So that's where I think we shoot ourselves in the face, right?
Yeah.
Great. So Leonard wants to lead systemd. Go for it. Is my statement. You know what I mean? Like, do I love that he's essentially reworking stuff that the Upstart guys have already gone out and done? No, I don't. But am I going to shoot it down? No, because he may be right, and we should celebrate that people are willing to go out on a limb and devote 5 years of their life to pursuing an idea.
Yeah.
And for the same reason, I think some of the target that's on the back of anybody who wears an Ubuntu T-shirt is very unhelpful. It's the same reason that I don't try and diss any of the Ubuntu derivatives, because I think it's great that they're willing to go out and invest their time to make stuff. I think it would be greater if they didn't feel that they needed to diss Ubuntu to try to make space for themselves. They don't have to. You know what I mean? Just do good stuff, tell your story and be great. So you'll never find me dissing KDE or GNOME, right? I think it's lovely that they exist. I really appreciate the effort they do, and I'll do everything I can to make them welcome on Ubuntu, right? And there's lots of people at Canonical who underwrite that and support that and make it real, right? And yeah, I'm damn proud that we went out and talked about convergence long before the big guys. And I think that, if we, I hope that in the end, history will say, well, it's really good for free software that Canonical has been willing to go out there in the face of tremendous criticism, right? Mm-hmm. And so perhaps some of the other things that we lead, maybe folks could bring a slightly more generous perspective to their assessment of the fact that we are willing to go out and lead.
So looking ahead a little bit, let's just say it's a couple years down the road. Maybe let's just say it's 2016. What kind of smartphone does Mark Shuttleworth have in his pocket, and what's the really impressive things it can do?
You really want me to pre-announce stuff?
I want to know, are you goal-wise, what I'm kind of going for is, do you believe that we'll have several Ubuntu phones on the market, high-end phones and things like that, and about that time? Or I'm kind of like, what is your realistic hopes? I'm not trying to make you nail anything down like this is going to happen.
The stuff that I'm happy to talk about is things that we've mapped out. So remember the Edge campaign. The idea was to build a phone that really had desktop-class processing.
That's kind of where I was thinking of,
And we were surprised at how possible that was, just looking at the roadmaps. As we announced it, obviously people came out of the woodwork to say, let's just tell you what we've got in our roadmap. Mm-hmm. And we were surprised at the extent to which this was going to become possible. I really believe that in 2016, you'll have a phone that is capable of running a full desktop. And I really hope that in 2016, you'll be able to have Ubuntu on that phone and have a full Ubuntu desktop and a full phone and a full tablet experience, all baked into that same thing.
Wow.
And in fact, if you saw, I can dig it out, there's a video recently of one of the Canonical guys who started landing the changes in Unity to actually make for full window management in Unity 8. Mm-hmm. So this is real. And if folks in the community want to be part of that, it's an amazing project to be part of. Like, there's a very happy, very buzzy, very potent kind of community dynamic around Unity 8. Mm-hmm. It's all clean, it's all QML, it's all optimized GL all the way down to the hardware. You don't have to do the GL optimization, right? And I think it's going to be real in that sort of time frame. So fun stuff to work on, a fun community, and the real, I think we're really delivering on that vision of one code base end to end. I think that's completely consistent with what we've been saying since 2000 and, well, internally 2009, externally 2011, mm-hmm. right? Mm-hmm. And if folks want to be part of that, then it's a very, very easy on-ramp to participating.
Well, I'm definitely I'm following with a lot of interest and trying out the images and things like that. It's neat, and like you said, I think it's kind of exciting. There's also Firefox OS and Sailfish OS I've been trying. They all are bringing something different, and it's all code that people can play with right now. Mark, is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
No, only to say, I guess, to extend an open invitation for folks who don't want anything to do with Unity. Please feel free to make Ubuntu your home nonetheless, and to make the most of it, use the stuff that we do. I'd ask that you do that as a collaborative process with the rest of Ubuntu. We have a good process for integrating work from all sorts of different desktop environments and other projects. And that way, you get the benefit of what we do, we get the benefit of what you do. Mm-hmm. Second, for folks who really are fascinated by this vision of convergence, come along and join the Unity project, right? It's really easy to contribute to. There's a great dynamic. It's a lot of fun, and bringing a full desktop environment to Unity, which is now doing phone and tablet, adding the desktop piece. It's really just delivering the window management experience that you want. And so, I think everybody knows what one of those feels like. Mm-hmm. And then third, on the cloud, I think Juju Charms are the neatest encapsulation of a cloud workload to go onto any cloud. And so the great thing about coming and contributing to a charm is, say you're a security guy, if you make that charm more secure, then it's more secure on every cloud, right? From Azure to AWS. Mm-hmm. And if you make that charm perform better, then it performs better for everybody who's using it across Azure or AWS. So there's the core Ubuntu, then there are these upstream projects, and then there's the cloud side of things, and they're all really interesting. And then the last thing is to say is have some fun with click packages for the phone. It's a really nice new way of thinking about delivering your bits, that like the latest, sharpest stuff. And it's kind of amazing to see how that developer ecosystem is kicking off.
This is such a fascinating time. I mean, and to be at the 10-year mark, and everything you just laid out there is, it's all really unique and incredible stuff. The Juju stuff we're going to do a special on in a couple of weeks because it's really fascinating stuff. And so it's been fun to talk to you, Mark, because I feel like this will be a great conversation to look back on in a few years at this really kind of interesting transition time where you're really starting to see some of the fruits of the labor. And it's not quite all like in people's hands yet, but it's getting close to that point, or at least close enough, and you can actually start to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and it's kind of exciting. So I wish you the best of luck over the next 10 years, and maybe we can chat again as more devices hit the market and do a little update on things. And that brings us to the end of this week's show. But, Matt,
yes,
we have a few things to follow up on, like the Giving Guide of 2014 from the Free Software Foundation. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen, what the Free Software Foundation think you should give. They say electronics are a popular gift for the holidays, but people often overlook the restrictions that manufacturers slip under the wrapping paper. So they say from remote deletion of files to harsh rules about copying and sharing, some gifts take more than they give.
Oh boy.
The good news is there are ethical companies making better devices for your loved ones that you can enjoy with freedom and privacy. So they've given us a list here, Matt, and they give you an upvote, like for example, why not grab the LulzBot over the MakerBot replicator too? Because the MakerWare software is proprietary, restricting freedom and stifling innovation, and recently announced increasing proprietary approach rather than distancing themselves.
Okay.
Amazon, say don't go with that. Maybe give them an ebook from Project Gutenberg. Not a bad suggestion, I suppose.
There are some good books there. I think it depends on taste, but I would agree. Sure.
They point out that Amazon remotely deletes files, or has in the past.
That has happened twice. Yes.
The laptop one, the big contentious one, they say go with the Think Penguin over an Apple MacBook Pro and get it with Triskel, and they give you a coupon to save $5.
Considering their comparison, I don't have a problem with that.
So graphics and design, instead of getting somebody Photoshop and Illustrator, give them GIMP and Inkscape.
Depends on their needs. For myself,
would you do that?
yes.
Would you put it on a thumb drive, like a deb file on a thumb
you
drive?
You could, yeah. Or I think if you actually sweetened the deal and provided support with it, then you have something.
Operating systems. Instead of giving the gift of Windows, give them the gift of Triskel GNU/Linux.
I'm okay with that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
definitely. Yeah.
Gift cards. Don't buy an iTunes gift card. No. Instead, give them a free software membership card.
There you go. Membership has its privileges. I probably would go with another gift card from somewhere else.
You can donate in a friend's name.
Yeah, that's fine.
They also point out Replicant OS might be something to go with.
That could be cool.
They also point out a different file system and storage systems than Google Drive, Media Goblin over YouTube.
Nice.
They give some other recommended hardware devices like the Think Penguin Wi-Fi router. So some different stuff in here.
What I liked most about that, I think, is the fact that they're introducing people to stuff that they may not know exists as an alternative, and that's awesome.
This is what I like about the list too. Is it's really an excuse to do that. Like
really is.
I think giving exposure to this tiny itsy bitsy Wi-Fi dongle, it's like, hey, that's going to work great with Linux, right? Or the router there, or Media Goblin, which really
Media Goblin's awesome.
It deserves more attention, right? Yes. So that's what's great about this list, I think, is there's just maybe even if it's not for somebody else, it really just might be.
Well, and even Replicant. I mean, that's actually a really cool project.
Yeah, it's cool to know. Oh yeah, the LulzBot. Like I forgot about that.
Exactly.
Like I should check that out. And they also have like a save when you buy. If you contact sales and mention this guide, you'll receive an extra roll of laminate and free shipping to the U.S. and Canada, and the EU expires at the end of 2014. So that's kind of nice, too.
There's some good stuff there.
Hey, Matt, I saw a submission to the subreddit that got very little traction.
Oh, okay.
I was just curious what the audience thought, so I wanted to give it a bump. Push ACC says, hey, I'd like to get a top 5 list occasionally. And he wanted to know what we thought about doing top 5 lists in LAS and Unplugged. And I took this idea and I thought, maybe this would be a neat thing for like the weekly spotlight, or like a segment of like top 5, like your favorite open source projects, or something, top 5 things that have happened in 2014 in open source. I don't know. This could go bad too, so I'd like to do it in a way that it would be like informative for people, where they'd learn about something new. If it's something you might be interested, we can kind of gauge your interest. There's a link in the show notes to the subreddit thread. If you throw a top 5 in there and start getting some ideas rolling, maybe we'll see if people like it. Otherwise, we could just move on.
I'm okay with that. I think if the audience is willing to basically provide the content and kind of give us some ideas that we're not having to go search for ourselves, that's awesome, because then it's not only stuff you guys want to see, but at the same time, we're not under the gun saying, oh my God, we got 3 and we don't know what the other 2 are.
And it could also be a good way for us to sort of talk about projects that maybe deserve a little more attention, and things like that.
That would be cool. See that right there. Yeah.
Hey, speaking of something that deserves a lot of attention, I just wanted to give a random plug. to Ronald Jenkins, who makes incredible music. And a couple of weeks ago, he released a new album. It's called Alphanumeric.
Nice.
You've caught one of the theme songs in one of our new shows, but a lot of good tracks on there. I've really been enjoying the new album, and I just want to give it a plug. You can get it. It's DRM free, and buy it right from his website. And then you can download. He's got his other albums up there, too. They're all great. And you'll hear a lot of his music in our shows, and so I just wanted to give him a plug as a thank you for letting us use that music. Congratulations on the great CDs. So his new one is called Alphanumeric by Ronald Jenkins, and I'll have a link in the show notes. You can go to ronaldjenkins.com to grab that DRM-free version, high-quality MP3s, too. And then a plug for your questions.
Yes.
On Monday, Lennart Potter will be joining me, and we'll play it in an upcoming episode of the Linux Action Show or Unplugged. You only have a little bit of time because we're recording this on Sunday. So if you've got a question for Lennart, I have a link in our show notes. Go over there and ask it. Keep it technical, concise, and respectful, and then also vote on the ones that maybe are you can do a +1 if it's a question you'd like to see by voting up. If it's a question that you don't want to see, you can vote down, but really voting up will suffice for questions you'd like to see. That will promote those ones. The ones that are most concise, respectful, technical, and best voted will probably make it into the show when I talk with Lennart on Monday. So you just got a little bit of time to get this in, and then stay tuned. We'll air that in a future episode.
Sounds good.
Hey, Matt, I did a crazy rolling update right here before the show started.
And there was fire and firemen.
Actually, things went okay. But, Matt, you have a good post up on Datamation about why you might want to avoid a rolling release.
Yes.
People can catch that over at datamation.com in the open source section.
Yeah, check it out. It's like I said, it's not poo-pooing the idea. It's devil's advocate, and also based on my experience of why you might not be the best match for you. I'm just saying.
Maybe.
You never know.
I recorded, this morning before the show started, while I was cooking bacon, there was an Antigros update problem where the GPG key was missing, and the packages were signed with a new key, and I had the old key, but I couldn't get the new key. And so I recorded it live to see, okay, is this rolling release going to fall on its face right now, or can we get this resolved before the show starts? I'm going to edit that down, and then I'm probably going to feature it in Unplugged this week.
I think that helps some folks out.
Yeah, it's like, here is one of the problems rolling, and especially when you go with an offshoot of Arch, because it was something that wouldn't have happened to mainline Arch. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of as a lot of people come into this and they try these easier to use, quote unquote, Arches, is there a downside? What is the kind of problem you might run into as a rolling release user? So I recorded my troubleshooting of that. I'll cut out the cussing. No, I'm kidding. And then we'll feature
the best
it soon.
part.
Yeah. Also, just as things go on, we'll be capturing them on our Instagram feed. We have an official Jupiter Broadcasting Instagram feed, instagram.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. There's a picture of me with my evil face.
I love it. You're going
sizing up my son. For some reason, when I'm throwing snowballs at my son, I get that horrible evil look on my face. I don't know what's up with that.
You're reliving youth, man. You're
Instagram.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Look at this. This is also me in my pajamas. That's great, isn't it?
Awesome.
I wear that hat. No, not really, but yeah.
Sure.
And I did mention the subreddit, linuxactionshow.reddit.com. That's where you can contribute to our show. And don't forget to watch us live on Sundays. We start at 10 a.m. Pacific at jblive.tv. But don't worry about the math. Just go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar. And our robots react in real time, faster than your puny human reflexes, convert the time for you, and then display it before your simple web browser can keep up with them. It's incredible. jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact to send in mail to the show. That's where you can get a hold of us. And and I'd like to hear your smoke ping alternatives. Somebody gave me a great one, and I lost it. But smoke ping, it's good. But every time I set up a rig, it's like, I got to go get that Docker image. It's a pain in the butt. So somebody linked me to one, and I totally forgot what it was, and I'd like to feature it in a future episode. So if you have a really great smoke ping alternative, if you know what I'm talking about, then you probably know what a great one would be. Please send it in, either submit it to the subreddit or email linuxactionshow@reddit.com or at jupiterbroadcasting.com, or just click the contact link so that way I didn't just confuse you. And then just choose Linux Action Show from the drop-down. I want to get one set up. I believe I'm getting screwed, and I want to measure it. And I can use your help. Smoke ping alternative. Send that in. Anything else, any questions, just go to that contact page and shoot it to us. Okay. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning this week's episode of the Linux Action Show. We'll see you right back here next week. We had on Friday the Thanksgiving at our house.
Yeah.
And I go out and I get the Alton Brown brine recipe, and I brine the turkey. I'm real religious about brining the turkey, because I think a brined turkey makes the difference between a dry turkey. Like it gives you buffer. Like you can leave it in the oven a little bit longer and accidentally, and the brine keeps it moist, real super moist, super moist. So I do all this effort. I wash out the giant cooler. I get my, I got to get a big witch's brew pot and mix the brine together and boil it for a while and get everything released. And then I put it in the cooler, and then I put a bird in there, and I get 2 days worth of ice from the freezer, and I push it in there, and I seal it up, and it sit it, from night to the time I cook it. And it turns out great. And so yesterday I'm driving around with Chase, and Chase is, did you know Costco has a pre-brined turkey and it's amazing? And I was like, all right, wait, what? And he's like, it's like the best turkey I've ever had. And I'm thinking to myself, how does these things happen where I go to all this effort and then I discover I could have bought the turkey and the brine
You wouldn't
together?
have been satisfied buying someone else's turkey.
I don't know.
I mean, let's put it this way. If this broadcasting thing ever, I don't know, you just kind of got tired of it and wanted to go something else, you're going to be the meat man.
That's true.
Drive around in an ice cream truck with, bacon on sticks, and it's going to, and it's really your passion, Yeah,
and I'll need somebody who's got the veggie specials on the grill.
Exactly.
So if you're out there and you know how to grill some kale,
there you go.
Something like that, let me know.
And just do double window, window on one side, window on the other.
We'll do Jupiter barbecue. Oh, and keep the same initials. That's great.
Right.
Yeah. I'm
JB barbecue.
Ooh, I feel a lot better having a plan B.
Drone cam,
Yeah.
Drone cam.
Man, I could even live stream the barbecue. And then people would know when to show up because they could watch the meat live.
Get sponsors.
Oh, yeah, man.
Hold
on a second. Now, if there was a way to now combine the new recreational cannabis market into this plan, I could really have a moneymaker. If Apple doesn't want to participate in the professional market, then they should just stop pretending like they do.
I see what you're saying.
The thing is the reason why the role that the Mac Mini plays in production is kind of significant because you need something low profile with high compute and high memory capacity. You don't need a lot of storage. You basically need CPU and GPU if possible.
Right.
And unfortunately, in the new Mac Mini, they didn't really do anything of significance with the GPU. And they could have gone with like an NVIDIA mobile chip, something like that.
And I think they did that strategically on purpose. Yeah. And they know they can get you. Yeah.
It sucks because it sort of means if you're going to participate in the production field with Macs, your starting price then is $2,500.
Yep. It is. Although the solution to that problem is you get yourself a black garbage can for about $7,000, and then you throw and then you make sure you have to buy a lot of add-ons to get the functionality you had with the previous gen. Yeah. Because that's important.
A lot of external Thunderbolt devices.
Exactly. You got to have the
$50 cables.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The NUC, so we're considering getting like a gigabyte i7 NUC to do the gerb instead. But
right.
I mean, let's be practical. This isn't my garage anymore, right?
This is a whole different
I have
animal.
a daily show. Yep. Like, these things are running 24/7.
Yeah.
We have 13, 14 shows that we're producing in here that if it goes down, right, it is a problem. So anytime you have a Hackintosh, you are taking on a lot more risk in a production environment.
Well, at the end of the day, a Hackintosh versus whatever the other unit is, a Hackintosh, you are tech support, period. It's your ball of wax.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it is.
So I think technically, and you have seen me in the past go the route of Hackintosh because I just, like, the technologist in me cannot bring myself to spend that much money on something that I can build just as well or oftentimes better. Like, for example, if I decide to build a Hackintosh, well, then guess what I get immediately? Right. Instead of getting a trash can, I get PCI Express slots, right? I get 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 drives worth of storage, big, fast hard drives, 10,000 RPM hard drives. So there's so many advantages, not to mention the cost savings of building a Hackintosh. But the fundamental thing is these are being used as tools in a production pipeline. Like, more than anything else,
running legacy apps that you absolutely have to have.
That's their most important functionality.
Right.
So regardless of how much money I could save, if they are fundamentally not the right tool for the job, then it almost doesn't matter. Like, yes, I could buy a gigabyte NUC with an i7 processor and probably do what I want to do. It would probably push that NUC to its limit because I really do need some GPU decoding too. And I would be using something that is unsupported that would potentially be prone to failure when it has weird issues. We don't know why. Like, for example, I really like this Nuckintosh that we have over here for these kinds of tasks.
Sure.
But after a week, maybe the HDMI audio just quits working. Or today I came in after being gone for 2 days, and the CPU was at 100%, absolutely maxed out, even though nothing was running on it. Now, is that just because OS 10 isn't a very good production OS? Maybe. Or is it because there was some crazy-ass driver that went wild in the Hackintosh or something? Maybe. But I just never know, right? And so it's one of these things where, like, will this update break the bootloader? Maybe. But do I need this update in order to run this next version of the broadcast software? Yes.
Exactly.
So I have to do this update, which might break the bootloader, but if I don't do this update, I can't get the next version of the broadcast software, which fixes a GPU usage bug by like 80%. So if I don't upgrade, like I'm screwed. So it gets you in this position where you don't have the confidence, right? Whereas if the trash can or the iMac or the Mac Mini has an issue, well, number one, I can just go grab standard Apple-supported media, which saves time. I can reload instantly if it got to that. But number two, if it's a hardware issue, I could drive it down to the Apple Store, give it to them.
That's what it was for my wife. It's because she's like, I have two options. I can drop it off at these guys and just walk away, or I can listen to you scream at it for 4 hours as you fix it. And I do. I hate Macs.
Exactly. That's the other thing about it is then I have to start dealing with OS 10, and I don't want to have to fight with OS 10. It feels like I have one hand tied behind my back the whole time, and I just sit there and wish it was a Linux box, and so it gets very frustrating. So there's that aspect of it too, and not to mention you're butchering parts of the operating system to get it to work on that thing. And I sit there, and what I think to myself is, if I wasn't doing video, I would do all of this on a couple of System 76 rigs.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't need any of it.
Yeah, and that's the rub. That is the rub right there. It really is.
So I constantly, almost on a weekly basis, reevaluate if I still want to do video because of it. And so that's why I wish Apple would make the Mini just, keep it at the current price point, but give me a better GPU, give me an i7, give me more than 256 gigabytes, give me at least a 512, and then maybe we can talk. Then it could be a compelling sub-$1,000 Apple device that I could use, just stick in the corner and have it do video encoding. Because what I'd like to do is be able to broadcast multiple streams, have multiple different resolutions, have all of that going out, have a second machine that's always recording so I have a backup copy, because right now I don't have a backup. Exactly. And I would like to have a copy of the live stream recorded in full resolution locally that we could play back on the live stream. So all of that requires a secondary machine that has a very, very, very fast processor and a good GPU. And right now, if I stay official Macintosh, my cheapest option is a frickin' iMac, which, I don't even need a device that... I really don't need a device that big.
It was way out of our price range.
Right? I just need something to sit in the corner. I don't need a 27-inch or whatever it is screen.
Just a box.
Yeah.
And a Mac Mini with proper hardware. That would help.
So not only do I
see where you're coming from on production.
And so you could tell, I wouldn't be in this situation unless it was the best solution available. I constantly reevaluate it, and unfortunately, the gap, I still fear is so many years away from being closed.
And here comes the $10,000 question that I'll just answer for the chat room's going to ask, and I'll do it for him. Well, gosh, Chris, why can't you use Google Hangouts? I mean, that's the same thing. I mean, the quality's fantastic, and I see this pop up in my inbox often.
Well, Plasso, it's super easy because Rikai's a nice guy, and he does the Hackintoshing for me. I don't even have to do the Hackintoshing. It's not even it's not about how hard it is. That's not it at all.
No.
I mean, we've done Hackintoshes for years and once we moved into this studio, I decided anything that's in the critical production pipeline that affects us moving forward needs to be supported hardware. It needs to be something with a warranty. It needs to be something that runs the software it's supposed to run, something that, when they start doing some sort of hardware check or something like that, it's not going to... It's like running a business on counterfeit products. It's just not... It's borderline ethical or unethical. And it's not very smart, not very safe.
No, it's not very. Oh, and I think also the quality of video you're putting out also depends on what you're using, too. Yes, you can theoretically put video out in Linux. You won't have any of the functionality that we have now. All transitions, the ability to do what we do would be gone. Because I know that there are people that do that sort of thing, but I think that's something that I see come up a lot, in my inbox. And it's just like, it's just apples and oranges. It's just different stuff. That's just not what we do. Anyway.
Well, I would probably commit to trying to do it all in video if this was the only show we did, because then I would record it, and then I would maybe have multiple cameras. Then I would edit that together, bring in the audio separately.
You could do that. Yeah.
If I only had, but then that would
But that's a single show.
What a crazy way to hobble your business just because of sticking to the inferior product. How do you rationalize that? What is the process that you have to go through to convince yourself to handicap your business to such a degree so that way you can use the inferior tool set.
Right. And then what's that like for the audience, the sponsors, anyone participating in the program? What's
right. If the quality goes down, is it something that's even sponsorable?
Exactly. Yeah. And are they taking you seriously, or does it look like something that was done in a shed in the back room or something? It's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
So that's why I think I wish the Mini was a little bit better, because people in my position, I think there's a lot of people in my position that could use a more competitive lower end device. That
it would make sense.
Has some good processing power. Power!